the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile and holds a Master's of Science in Gender and International Relations from the University of Bristol. Vivian will present us today the Pacto de Productividad Initiative, a public-private articulation platform that supports the employment of people with disabilities in Chile. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you very much, Maria Ignacia. So let me show you my presentation. Good afternoon for everyone and good morning for the people in Chile. I will present Pacto de Productividad Chile, a public-private articulation strategy for the labor inclusion of people with disabilities. Pacto de Productividad Chile is an initiative based on the experience led by Fundación Corona and other partners in Colombia that developed a territorial model of labor inclusion for persons with disability based on the UN International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The territorial model of labor inclusion, Pacto de Productividad, recognizes and promotes the right of persons with disabilities to be employed in the same way as anyone else in the open labor market. The project in Colombia employed more than 650 persons with disabilities and promoted public-private coordination that remains in operation to date. In Chile, Pacto de Productividad is led by Fundación Descúbreme and the IDB Lab with the technical support of Fundación Corona. The objective of the Pacto de Productividad Chile is to consolidate a public-private collaboration platform that generates effective articulation of the labor inclusion ecosystem of persons with disabilities, providing greater sustainability and impact to the implementation of the law of inclusion in Chile. The project is developed around 4 components, so I will tell you the main purpose of each one. The first one, mobilization and articulation of social actors of the ecosystem. To make strategic decisions, the program created a cross-sectoral governance system consistent in the participation of the public, private, and civil sectors. Their goal is to agree on quality standards for the inclusive employment of people with disabilities, and therefore ensure equal opportunities for everyone. In the component 2, development and implementation of management processes, we are training relevant actors of the ecosystem in the model of Pacto de Productividad, considering the methodology, standards, and good practices developed in component 1 and inspired by the model developed by Pacto de Productividad Colombia. In the component 3, advice processes of training and labor inclusion of persons with disabilities, the aim is to train, advise, and provide technical support to each of the actors in the ecosystem qualified to develop inclusive products, services, and processes with an emphasis on the inclusion of women with disabilities. And in the component 4, generation of knowledge and innovation for inclusion, the first goal is to identify technological solutions that facilitate environments for optimal and adequate performance of persons with disabilities. Then, promote the implementation of the solution in a business environment, contributing to the labor inclusion of persons with disabilities and the productivity of companies. The 2020, we developed the call ICT, Innovation of Inclusion, where we selected 3 innovative solutions, and this year they will be implemented project in Chile. We have Enable India with the iTool, Egality, Inclusion and Diversity, and Fundación 11. You can know more about them in a next webinar in Channel 1. Secondly, we are developing and monitoring a follow-up system to guide the processes of supporting the social actors of the ecosystem and the processes of inclusion and labor retention of persons with disabilities. Also, we are working in a continuous systematization process so that Pacto de Productividad Chile can be replicated in other areas of the country. Finally, we will contribute with a study to assess the impact of the labor inclusion law in its first 4 years of implementation. So here are the 4. It's worth mentioning that as a central element, Pacto de Productividad follows the postulates of the International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. From this, I would like to refer to 3 fundamental elements related particularly to the Pacto de Productividad. On the one hand, the Convention invites us to work for a paradigm shift, moving towards a model in which people with disabilities are recognized as subjects with rights, active in the decisions that influence their lives and with the capabilities to claim their rights. Therefore, the the importance of working with the different social actors of the ecosystem, considering that the barriers of society are the main obstacles to the full employment of human rights, and that is where we should focus our efforts. On the other hand, the state must promote the exercise of the right to work and develop pertinent measures, among other things, to promote employment and assure that reasonable adjustments are made in the workplace. Pacto de Productividad aims to install the right to work perspective in the participating groups, leaving installed capacity in each of them for their operation in the ecosystem. And finally, the Convention recognized the importance of international cooperation and its promotion as a form of support for national efforts. This encouraged the development of initiatives such as Pacto de Productividad as an example of international cooperation and public-private articulation for the development of countries in the region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vivian, for your presentation and for sharing your work with us. I believe this is a clear example of what can be achieved through partnership and through collaboration for inclusion. And this is also a great example of finding excellent practices in other countries that are proven and that we know have excellent results that are measurable and that we can know and adapt to our own local context and replicate within the framework of our work. So let us move on now to some more specific models. I would like now to introduce Sean Wilshire, all the way from Canada. For almost 30 years, Sean has been the Chief Executive Officer of Avalon Employment Incorporated, an employment service for persons with disabilities and those living on the autism spectrum. Avalon Employment works with businesses to help them diversify their workforce and be more innovative. Supporting this process is a unique model of onboarding for job seekers and employers alike, and skills matching with the employer needs at the forefront. Sean has written and piloted several new programs in many parts of Canada and Southeast Asia. Sean is also the founding president of the Canadian Association for Supported Employment. As you can imagine from this introduction, Sean will present us some recent models used by organizations to work with the private sector to introduce inclusive employment in an innovative way. Welcome, Sean. We are delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Maria, for the very kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here and share with you some information that we had around our program for folks living on the autism spectrum. We're in Eastern Canada. We live on an island of about 500,000 people, and we have a number of smaller communities, so we could be considered rural parts of Canada. Our program was really based on the fact that businesses wanted to be innovative. We were demonstrating to businesses that diversification through employment for folks on the autism spectrum would lead to innovation within their company. And what we were explaining was a new idea. We moved away from a corporate social responsibility model to the idea that the skill was what we were selling. The individuals that we were working with all had identified different areas of the employment field that they would like to work. They had skills and they had identifiable areas that they could work. So how did we get people jobs? We only looked at one person, one job at a time. The individualized nature of our program allowed us to specifically help individuals with their particular needs. And with everyone on the autism spectrum disorder living a different way, we wanted to be individualized to build on that success. So we looked for the job that suited the individual based on their demonstrated skills. So it was identifying not only the formalized skills, but hidden skills. To account their strengths and challenges, past experiences, and we built a toolkit that addressed those issues that they were challenged with in the workplace. Skill identification was really key. Without this, we couldn't sell the individual to the employer. We were demonstrating to the employer that the individual could complete the job, but they may need small accommodations to support the workplace. We built toolkits specifically for the employer to address any issues that may come up at the workplace. And we also built toolkits for the individual so that things like time management, work skill analysis, or tasks that change throughout the day were notified by a timer or by a prompt. This allowing the individual to stay on task and complete the job that they were required to do. Our process was different as well. It's more informal and organic. We really wanted to look at the individual and find out about them versus what an assessment might have. We have a two-stage process to allow individuals time to both process the information, but more importantly, an opportunity for them to seek input and reflection. We discovered very quickly that the ideas and the possibilities people felt that they could do changed when they had time to reflect on what they were able to do. We were meeting people where they were. We were meeting people and saying that you have skills. We were starting from a point of success. But the first meeting was very basic to give people an opportunity to understand the process that they were going to get involved with. 5 W's, who, what, when, where, and why. These were things that we could talk to folks about and get some better ideas about where some of their hidden skills may lay. We really talked about building the business case for the business, about innovation, and the skill identification for the individual job seekers. Both of these processes happened parallel to each other. So we were doing 2 things at once, but it allowed us to match the skills to the individual employers that were looking for employees. Organizations engaged with employers, it's about making the business think of you differently. Not so much as a not-for-profit, social-driven organization, but what is your value proposition? Identifying your role as valuable to the business, helping them diversify their workforce, become innovative, and thereby more profitable. All businesses are seeking better decision makers, people who have innovative thinking, and this was the community we identified as folks living on the autism spectrum. The barriers to success that many people will see with employers is getting them to move past old mindsets. You can't hire people out of pity. Disabilities must be productive and paid. Moving away from this allows the value of the individual skill to shine through. In relation to workplace dynamics, others in the workplace made what they perceive to be special treatment. This is important that you need to learn what all of the things about accommodation to apply to all employees, to build that team effort and see that everybody is bringing a different perspective. All employees deserve support and training to succeed. I think the key is diversity works for business. A new set of eyes offers a different view. People's personal experiences give them a different view. We hire people for their experience in education, and innovation only happens when new solutions are applied to old problems. This is the basis of our process. We took the individuals, identified their skills, and matched that with the employer, explaining to them that if they want innovation, folks who have barriers every day make decisions and think innovatively to overcome those barriers. That's what businesses throughout Canada and the world need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sean, for your inspiring presentation. We have seen how the private sector, can drive and lead change when it is open to think differently and when it is open to introduce innovation from a diversity perspective. And of course, when provided with our experiences and expertise. I would like to introduce now Victor Martinez, Supervisor of the Professional Inclusion and Longevity Service of Instituto João Clemente in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Sean, if you could please stop sharing your screen, that would be good. Thank you. So, back to Victor. Victor is a pedagogue and psychoanalyst with postgraduate studies in inclusion and intellectual disability. He also holds a master's degree in education and for employment. Victor will present about how public policies can influence the employment of people with disabilities, with a particular emphasis in the Brazilian case. Welcome, Victor.
Hello, Ignacia and everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, all. It's a big pleasure to be here with you and to share our practice and experience in the Brazil. I will share the presentation. As important as promoting partnership with the companies and the other actors in the private sector is to building good examples together with the public sector. Some points of the Brazilian legislation have advanced in the last 30 years, helping to create a better reality for people with disability. And the first topic is a very, very important topic, is that in 1991, Brazil passed a law that guarantees people with disabilities access to formal employment. For companies with more than 100 employees, it is mandatory to have 2% to 5% of its staff composed of people with disability. It's an important point in the history in Brazil that began to change the country and companies and the society in general. It is worth mentioning that it was only in 2002, then more years after the law was created, that expansions in companies began, enabling the structuring of the all actors involved. We have numbers that demonstrates the importance and the effectiveness of this law. In 2001, before then expansion started, we had 601 people with disabilities working in the state of São Paulo. Today, we have more than 30,000 people with disabilities working in São Paulo. These actions enable great financial income, the more autonomy and development of these people life projects. The Brazilian public sector also that having people with disabilities working is better for public accounts. In 2015, the Brazilian inclusion law was created, where it was established that the Brazilian state will provide financial assistance to people with disabilities who go to the labor market. Since then, these people feel motivated to go work and develop, instead to be dependent on the pension paid by the government, isolated in their homes or in some institutional space, like this is Instituto João Clemente. It's necessary to change the role of the institution. Since the beginning of our work with support and employment, we have established partnership for inclusion with the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, including working with disabilities in autism branches, allowing employees who work in this space live with the people with disabilities and the participants and the constructions of life projects that allows the development of the autonomy of participants involved. This opportunity, the change role, the third sector, and I think the third sector is an organism alive, always necessary to understand the context. Right. Little water. Even though we still have half of the vacancies to fulfilled by the quota law in Brazil, about the 300,000 jobs for people with disabilities, the increase the number of the vacancies offered by companies to people with disability was very large since the beginning inspection of the quota law. However, we are at a time when we need to better structure the way in which these inclusions are made. For this reason, we have been trying to pass a law that entitles people with disabilities to be included based on the values and the principles that guide support and employment. Our methodology. Thus, the quality of inclusions for workers with disabilities and also for companies will be much better. I believe we've chosen the keywords in the paragraph is to improve the quality. not only the quantity in Brazil. Since the creation, the specific law to improve the idea, the inclusion, the people with disability, but the quality, the structure, the how to do is important to change. However, for a difficult scenario caused by the economic crisis resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, the main focus at the moment is to maintain these rights already conquered. At the beginning of the pandemic, many disabled workers were released for their jobs, as operational functions were the most effective in the country. After all, the low educational level of most people with disabilities, unemployment ended up arriving first these groups, especially in the subject educational practice is important. It's important subject in Brazil to change, to improve, but educational of the people with disability is more necessary in the moment. For this reason, we are currently participating in forums in the public spaces across the country, trying to assist in the creation of solutions that prevent people with disability from losing their rights to education, working, especially in life in the moment in the pandemic. Because in the times of the extreme crisis, history shows us that the tendency is for people in great vulnerability to have less space to express themselves at the risk of becoming even more vulnerable. Like this, it's important to care the health and the rights of the people with disabilities. I believe this is, Marian. I hope I have been clear in my explanation. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Victor, for your presentation. As a fellow Latin American country, we have also seen in Chile for 4 years now how employment of people with disabilities has increased significantly since the establishment of a quota law. The effects of initiatives such as this one are huge. So we hope for governments all around the world to take an active role to continue closing gaps for employment of disadvantaged groups. So thank you very much, for sharing your experience with us. So let us travel now all the way to Ireland for a person-centered perspective to learn how all of this work changes the lives of persons with disabilities. We have now with us today Marian Hennessy and Craig Kelly from Abilitywork. Marian is the creator and coordinator of Abilitywork at the Fundación in Cork, Ireland. She has 30 years of experience as a supported employment specialist. And from 2009 to 2017, she was a director of the Irish Association of Supported Employment. Together, they introduced the concept of the National Job Shadow Day initiative. Job Shadow inspires companies to open their minds and doors to inclusive employment as an opportunity to showcase people's different abilities. Marion is passionate about creating inclusive and equal workplaces and works with national and multinational companies present in Cork to break down barriers to employment for persons with disabilities. Marion and her team strive to make Cork the inclusive capital of Ireland. We also have Craig Kelly with us today. Craig is a 22-year-old young man with an intellectual disability. He has been registered with Abilitywork since the beginning of the program. He began his journey as a job seeker, but he is now the very first president of the very first ever Ability Board. The Ability Board will be explained shortly in Marian's presentation. And Craig's interests and hobbies include traveling, watching movies, meeting up with friends before COVID, of course, and advocating for people with disabilities and their right to employment. So Marian will present first about the Abilitywork model as a specialist employment service linking employers to people with different abilities. We will then hear Craig's speech about his experience as a job seeker and his advocacy efforts to achieve equal opportunities for all. So thank you very much, both Marian and Craig, for being with us today. We are delighted to have you. So I will share my screen for Marian. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Maria. I hope you can hear me there.
Perfect.
And you can share my slides.
I am doing it. Please confirm that you can see it.
Lovely. Thank you. Hello, everyone from Ireland. I hope you can all hear me. And thank you to Zero Project. We are delighted to be an award winner, and thank you for such a well-organised conference. My presentation today, as Maria said, will tell you what Abilitywork is all about. We'll share some pictures of our participants at work, and I will give you some useful strategies we use when engaging with the public and private sector, and how we believe that we are truly person-centred. Then you'll have the opportunity to meet Craig, and he will talk about his journey, and we'll finish with our video at the end. So Abilitywork is a specialised support to employment service, bringing young people with intellectual disabilities and autism closer to the labour market. This programme assists job seekers to overcome barriers they face every day when they try to find a job on their own. We have developed this service because our job seekers have asked for the support to help them to find work where they feel valued, equal and included in the workforce. Since 2018, 70 job seekers have registered on our programme, and so far, pre-COVID, 44 people had gained employment. Next slide, please. So what is Abilitywork all about, and what are our goals? Abilitywork connects employers and skilled people with different abilities who want to work. We assist companies to become more inclusive when they're recruiting staff, and we create positive opportunities for our job seekers through sustainable employment projects. We use a 5-stage model of supported employment to enable the person to find and maintain a job with the support of a job coach. Now, in the next 3 slides, I want to introduce you to some of our job seekers. Next slide, please. So here's Jason. He's on a work sampling opportunity in a local little supermarket in Cork. And next slide. This is Laura. She's finding out what it's like to work in a large multinational company. And since then, this company now employs one of our job seekers. Next slide, please. And here is Sheila. Sheila got a job in a cafe, and now she works full-time and has left her programme and is living a full and independent life. Next slide, please. So we support people to find and maintain employment using the support of a job coach. The job coach and the job seeker work together to identify career choices. We do this by many one-to-one sessions to develop a vocational profile, and through weekly job clubs where people learn work preparation and interview skills. We also provide access to a variety of training and upskilling to gain qualifications. At all times, the person is at the centre of everything we do. We provide continuous support at the start, during and after securing employment. Next slide, please. So here we have Dale. Dale's big dream was to work on buses. We found a job for him as a tour guide assistant where he meets and greets tourists. And hopefully you may meet him sometime if you come to visit us in Cork. Next slide, please. Here is Thomas. Thomas is a person with severe autism, and he's working again in his local supermarket. He works 5 hours a week with the help of his key worker. Our programme is open to everyone, no matter what difficulty they have. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to tell you some strategies and some tips, I suppose, what we use in our Abilitywork programme, what really works for us. I feel that having an effective team who believe in best practice is very important. I know that our comprehensive backup service of coaching and mentoring is one of the main reasons why our employers are keen to get involved in our programme. We have built up a strong employer network with the business community, linking in with local Cork Chamber of Commerce and local business groups. Each year we host the Job Shadow Day initiative. This is a great way to introduce employers to what inclusive workplaces are all about and open doors to grow employment opportunities into the future. So I suppose we can't go on without mentioning the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects. And just like everyone else, our programme was severely affected by COVID-19. We had to shut our service and resort to working online. It had big effect on our job seekers and obviously on work opportunities. But we had to turn this situation around. During the pandemic, we invited companies to participate in online training programs, job clubs and educational tours of their workplaces. We analysed the current economic situation, what market was buoyant out there. For us, it was the retail and pharmaceutical sectors. During the 3 lockdowns in Ireland, we managed to secure 15 paid jobs. You see, people with different abilities can contribute and be essential frontline workers too. We found jobs for people as sanitizer operatives in large companies, and we matched a person who experiences literacy deficits delivering confidential files in a hospital. We've also interacted with bloggers and social influencers to promote our work and to find a modelling opportunity for a young person on the programme. Also, during these times, we've actively increased our social media presence. We have joined more business groups and forums, and last week, for example, we got 4 job pledges because of doing this. We look for every opportunity to build our partnerships with local business groups. We get involved in local events to get our name out there, to make links with key people who can make things happen for you. Also, I'd like to mention our hashtag campaign there on the bottom. 2 years ago, we launched the hashtag campaign, Making Cork the Inclusive Capital of Ireland. We wanted to promote inclusive workplaces with employers. We have got an excellent response as this appeals to companies. They want to be involved in doing their best. They want to belong to a growing network of inclusive, progressive companies. It has also appealed to the tourism and city council, as it shows that Cork is an open and welcoming place for people of thinking of moving to live here. Next slide, please. And this picture shows James on his job shadow day, and again, working in the store for 1 day. Next slide, please. And here is Jason. Jason has got a full-time job working in a cafe in a hospital. And next slide, please. Person-centeredness. And this actually is a picture of our young model on a photo shoot. I'd just like to tell you a little bit more about our person-centeredness. In Abilitywork, we've always endeavoured to put our participants at the heart of our programme. After year 1, we gave our participants the opportunity to evaluate the programme anonymously via an online platform. This gave us an insight into how the participants view their own service. We listened to their feedback and changed our approach. There were 3 key learnings from our programme. Our participants want to be referred as people with different abilities. They want to have a say in how much and how the programme is delivered. And they actively want to campaign for change to break down barriers they experience in life. Together, we came up with the concept of the Ability Board. And next slide, please. So the Ability Board is a management type structure made up entirely of the people we support. They're included in all decisions relating to the ability work. And in the interest of democracy, we held an election campaign where candidates on the programme put themselves forward for selection. We were blown away by their powerful speeches and as they explained the discrimination they face in their lives. Next slide, please. In March of last year, the official Ability Board election took place. They elected a president, a vice president, and a chairperson, and a working committee of the first Ability Board. Next slide, please. COVID-19 has not been able to break this inspirational group of young people. In 3 weeks' time, they will launch their national campaign to highlight the inequalities in the labour market towards people with intellectual disabilities. I would suggest you watch out for this group in the future. They are going places. It is now my pleasure to hand over to Craig, the president of our Ability Board, to talk to you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Craig, and I'd like to tell you firsthand what it's like to be a person with disability searching for a job. First of all, most of jobs now you have to apply for online. I find this very difficult, to be honest. I needed the support of my job coach for online applications together. We applied for loads of jobs online, but I only ever heard back from a few of those places. Other things that I needed support with were doing up a CV and getting ready for interviews. When I finally got my first interview, I was very excited. We prepared for days and I felt confident before I went into the interview. It was going great until I mentioned the fact that I had a job coach. They asked me what a job coach was. I told them they help people with disabilities find employment, and I knew straight away they did not want me to work there or even hire me to give me a chance. I knew when their faces fell, and I could tell by their body language I was really upset because of this. I felt like a fool. I said to my job coach, do I even have the confidence or heart to go to another interview because of getting denied and thinking no one would ever want me? Ability at Work helped me through this because I thought to myself, I'd be no good anywhere else. I'm still very nervous of interviews, especially if there is more than one person in there. That experience still really affects me to this day. It took a lot of work to pick me back up from the anxiety I was feeling about my future. I just thought I was useless and I'd never be anything. After a while in Ability at Work, I was encouraged by my job coach to get involved in advocacy. I'm now the first ever president of the Ability Board. We're an advocacy group who fight for the rights of people with disabilities in employment. We help job coaches and managers with every part of the program, and everything has to be run past us before a decision is made. The election campaign really changed my life for the better. It was such an exciting time, just like a real election. It made us feel so powerful and important. We all had to do a campaign trail, which involved making posters, visiting other centres, and giving speeches. The day of the election was one that I never forget. So many people were there to support us. Even some big Cork businesses got behind us. We are in the middle of an advocacy course at the moment. We are training to be the voice for the voiceless. We are preparing for a nationwide campaign to fight for the rights of people with disabilities. We have exciting plans for the Ability Board to become a social enterprise. As a group, we have come up with lots of ideas to help businesses be more inclusive. We are involved in giving disability awareness training to companies in Cork, but we are hoping to expand this to make the Ability Board bigger and better. Cork is definitely going to be the ability inclusive capital of Ireland by the time we're finished. I have learned now that having a disability is nothing to be ashamed of. The more we talk about it, the more it will be accepted. I have an invisible disability and I always found it hard when it came to the end of an application and the company asked you to tick a box. If you have any disability, I never knew what was the right thing to do. Would they ever accept me if I tick yes? Would they even meet me to give me a chance? Now I just always tick yes. I don't want to work for a company who don't even interview someone with a disability. But it took a long time for me to get to this stage. The aftermath of COVID-19 is going to be hard for everyone, but especially for people with disabilities, because as usual, we will be the ones that will be forgotten about. The government will make sure everything is done for other people, but we won't be important to them. Businesses will not reopen, places won't be as busy because of social distancing. There won't be as many people allowed to work somewhere at one time. There will be so many people looking for jobs that there will be too much competition. I'm afraid I'll get lost in all of these people. I have an invisible disability, but I am always honest with employers. I don't want to hide who I am. But once they hear the truth, I think they won't want me to work for them. I think this is going to get worse after COVID-19. I want the Irish government to give us a chance and show us a change. I want them to start using words like ability instead of disability. It would change how people think. I just wish companies would put in their adverts, people with different abilities are welcome to work here too. Then it would make myself and others feel less nervous about applying. I want to meet the Minister for Disability and tell her that we need more funding to keep our Ability at Work programme going past July. I am annoyed that all the good work might finish just because of money. We deserve equal opportunities. People might not know this, but we have so much to offer. Change needs to happen because we are people too. I want to show you a short video that was made for the Ability Board elections. It will quickly introduce you to the other board members and give you an idea about what we are about. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video.
I will now share Craig's video, so please allow me a few seconds. So thank you very much, both Marian and Craig, for your presentations. We have seen that for change to happen, we need to hear the voices of people with disabilities, and You need to be involved at all stages of decision making. Initiatives such as the one developed by Abilitywork and the Abilitywork need to be highlighted and replicated elsewhere, because through them we are empowering and enabling those who need to be at the front of the discussion. We are far from achieving our goals for inclusion, and I believe that all of us agree that COVID has shown how fragile our successes have been. So now more than ever, we need to keep working, and we need to strengthen our efforts to truly guarantee and to truly ensure that no one is left behind. So with this in mind, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today, and let us continue together to make inclusion real for everyone. Thank you very much who joined us, and thank you very much to our excellent panel today.